There's one thing in closing that we have in common is neither of us will be the nominee for our party in 2024. I'm the only guy here that's a border state governor. You're trolling folks and trying to find migrants to play political games, to try to get some news and attention so you can out-Trump Trump. And by the way, how's that going for you, Ron? You're down 41 points in your own home state.
He's just throwing stuff out to see what sticks against the wall. This is a slick, slippery politician whose state is failing. People are leaving his state, and he's trying to run interference for his failure. Well, this is an app where they plot the human feces that are found on the streets of San Francisco. And you see how almost the whole thing is covered, because that is what has happened in one of the previous greatest cities this country's ever had.
When are you going to drop out and at least give Nikki Haley a shot to take down Donald Trump in this nomination? She laid you out.
Please.
You're a walking hypocrite.
You're
a walking hypocrite.
What about China?
On the issue of China? There's one thing in closing that we have in common is neither of us will be the nominee for our party in 2024. I'm the only.
It's like hearing little kids fight over the last cookie. But Gavin Newsom was like, you know what? He was like Trump, but in a much better way, much calmer way, just slinging those zingers at DeSantis, who look, he has absolutely no shot of winning the nomination. In fact, as Gavin Newsom brought out, he'd be wise if he doesn't, because Trump and DeSantis are now enemies, so he'd be wise to drop out to help Nikki Haley beat his enemy. You know, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. That would be Nikki Haley in this case, right? Politicians are such adolescents. Oh my gosh. It's Power 96 Day. It's HBCU Day, SWAC Day. And so we say hello to all the SWAC folks. He's got his SWAC hoodie today. I don't know which team he's repping today, but I know he's repping somebody from the SWAC. And in the words of Bernie Mac, as he says, and by the way, Power 96, Bernie Mac is without the K. He's the Mac man. He says somebody done messed up the church's money. He does. And he says that, folks, about news out of the New York Times this morning that Israel knew a year in advance of Hamas's planned attack. In fact, precision, with precision they knew about it. So did they just sacrifice their people? That and more this morning. Of course, yesterday we was expecting, everyone was expecting, in fact, Representative Terry Sewell was expecting, she was a little ticked off. She was expecting to vote on George Santos, which will happen today now. She was like, you know what? They can't even properly schedule a vote, let alone lead. Talking about the Republicans. Also this morning, we're going to talk about a Philly lawmakers who voted yesterday to ban ski masks. Tell you more about that this morning. And I don't know how many saw that scathing documentary. We all remember the R. Kelly documentary, but how many saw that Leaving Neverland documentary about Michael Jackson? Well, for years, Wade Robeson has been fighting to get his case before a court. Well, his day is coming. A judge has set a status hearing in which he's going to set a trial date. We'll tell you about that this morning. And it's World AIDS Day, and we'll tell you the latest from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention about AIDS and HIV. And will they be a Rosa Parks holiday? Speaking of anniversaries, today is a big anniversary there, and we'll talk about Rosa Parks holiday, or potential Rosa Parks holiday. And Angel Reese returned last night. We're going to tell you how the phenomenal LSU basketball player performed in her return after a 4-game absence. But first, I got to mention this. So oftentimes we wonder, and some people might get upset when a celebrity refuses to take a photo with them, maybe even sign an autograph. Well, if anything, yesterday's visit by Dave Chappelle to Capitol Hill gives us a little bit of insight as to why, at times, celebrities don't stop to oblige those who look for a photo or something. He allowed Lauren Boebert, of all people, yeah, that Lauren Boebert, representative from Colorado, who, by the way, the president, Biden, was in her district a couple of days ago, and boy, oh boy, did he absolutely annihilate her in her district, showing what he's done for that district. And she's been opposed to everything, despite it turning into all of these jobs for her district and all this money pouring into that Colorado area because of Biden's policies. But Chappelle allowed Boebert to snap a picture of him and Anna Luna in a selfie on Capitol Hill yesterday. And this is what some of mainstream media did with it. For instance, Newsweek headlined a story about it with, quote, "Photo raises questions." All right, Newsweek, what questions does it raise? Well, if you read the article, you see the spin they put on it. And the New York Post certainly got it twisted with the headline, "Dave Chappelle poses for selfies with Lauren Boebert and Anna Luna." Well, it was the other way around, actually. And then the Daily Beast goes in with the headlines, "Lauren Boebert enlists Dave Chappelle for transphobic photo op." While the noted LGBTQ-centered news site, Bleeding Cool News, ran with this headline, "Dave Chappelle, Lauren Boebert are not surprisingly photo buddies." Again, this is why celebrities oftentimes refuse to take such photos. He was there to meet. Chappelle was on Capitol Hill. He's doing a thing in D.C., and he was there to meet with members of the Congressional Black Caucus, not the Congressional MAGA Caucus. And he said he did not want to say no to any of the lawmakers, and saw Lauren Boebert, who called him over. And there's video of this, and you hear her basically begging him to take a photo. And he's like, all right, all right. So he takes the photo, and she exploits it by putting on Twitter and caption the photo, "Just a couple of people who believe and understand that it's only two sexes, male and female." That Chappelle did not approve, did not sign off on it, did not even know what she was going to do with the picture. And when he found out, of course, later, during a appearance last night, he said, notice that it was all no hands. He was referring to that incident there in Colorado, where she and her then Democrat of a boyfriend, the boyfriend was Democrat. How about that? Was feeling each other up in at a showing of Beetlejuice. And Chappelle went on the quip last night. He says, if I wanted to get handsy with her, I would have offered her a ticket. That second ticket that I had to Beetlejuice. He's going to turn that into something. But he just shrugged it off and said that it was absolutely ridiculous for her to exploit him like that. So, but what do you expect from Representative Lauren Boebert, who actually won re-election by like 2 votes when it was all said and done? So they have to deal with her for 2 years on Congress, and she's really on the island by herself. She's not necessarily on the in crowd with the MAGA group. And so, she tries hard to solidify her place in the MAGA wing, but they sort of keep her at arm's distance. Understandably so, because boy, oh boy, the next smart thing she says or does will be the first. So that is Lauren Boebert in a nutshell. Oh my gosh. Turning our attention to something that it's really, really interesting in the context. Now, with this Israel war, it is so now even former President Barack Obama is for the first time publicly taking a different position than President Biden, and who actually is sort of cooling as well on the amount of support that the U.S. continues to provide Israel. Austin says of Lauren Boebert in the dictionary, her photo appears next to the definitions of nuts, crazy, and simple. Yeah. And you obviously in our dictionary, yes, indeed. But Israel, the New York Times, hat tip to Power 96. New York Times did a report this morning and said that they found that Israel obtained Hamas's battle plan for its October 7th terrorist attack more than a year before it happened. Documents, emails, and interviews revealed that. But Israelis military and intelligence officials dismissed the plan as aspirational, considering it too difficult for Hamas to carry out. The approximately 40-page document, which the Israeli authorities codename Jericho Wall, outlined point by point exactly the kind of devastating invasion that led to the deaths of about 1,200 people, including those concert goers, those festival goers, innocent festival goers. The translated document, which was reviewed by reporters at the New York Times, it didn't set a date for the attack, but it described, according to the New York Times, a methodical assault designed to overwhelm the fortifications around the Gaza Strip, take over Israeli cities, and storm key military bases, including a division headquarters. Hamas followed the blueprint, according to the New York Times, with shocking precision. The document called for a barrage of rockets at the outset of the attack, drones to knock out the security cameras, and automated machine guns along the border, and gunmen to pour into Israel all at once, and paragliders on motorcycles and on foot, all of which happened on October 7th. Benjamin Netanyahu, what is the deal? That's the question. So in other words, this was something that not only did they know about so far in advance, could and should have been avoided. The plan also included details about the location and size of Israelis' military forces, communication hubs, and other sensitive information, raising questions about how Hamas gathered its intelligence and whether there were leaks inside the Israeli security establishment. The document was circulated widely among the Israel military and intelligence leaders. It showed that this all was going to happen, and the New York Times says it's unclear whether Netanyahu or other political leaders saw the document. How do you not allow the prime minister to see these documents? I can't believe that Netanyahu, too, was not aware of this. They said a year ago that it's still unclear. They carried it out according to the documents with the precise way in which they said they were going to do it. Just 3 months before the attacks, a veteran analyst with Unit 8200, Israel's signals intelligence agency, warned again just 3 months before the attacks that Hamas had conducted an intense day-long training exercise that was absolutely similar to what actually happened. They said a colonel brushed off those concerns, and they got a quote from the document in which this colonel says, "I utterly refute that the scenario is imaginary." She said the Hamas training exercise fully matched the content of Jericho Wall. It is a plan designed to start a war, she said. It is not just a raid on a village. This is a colonel. And now they are conceding that Israel is conceding that had the military taken the warning seriously and redirected significant reinforcements to the south, that's where Hamas made their attack, they could have stopped these horrific attacks. Instead, the military was unprepared as terrorists streamed out of the Gaza Strip. It was the deadliest day in Israel's history. This Jericho Wall document, according to the New York Times, lays bare years-long cascade of missteps that culminated in that October 7th attack. Boy, but we talked about Henry Kissinger and with all the blood on his hands as he died at age 100 yesterday. Boy, oh boy, somebody's got a lot of blood on their hands from this. Wow. You're telling me, I mean, think about that meme with the little African young man, little African boys. You're telling me that this could have been avoided? Tell you what else could have been avoided. George Santos in Congress. Yeah, David, Kissinger was a war criminal. But this is horrible. And now because of it, not only did you have all of those casualties in Israel, but you have so many innocent folks, Israelis, Palestinians being slaughtered. Power 96 says maybe Condoleezza Rice was in charge of their intelligence. The report was too vague. The report seemed to be, it gave them enough warning, it seems. And they just didn't take it for, they took it for granted. But when you say that that Hamas did a training exercise just a couple months earlier, well, it seems to me that at the very least, that you're going to keep a very close eye on them. So maybe even Condoleezza Rice would have been, up to speed enough to say, let's keep an eye on this thing. Boy, forewarned is forearmed, but it's apparently not in this case. Wow. House Republican leaders delayed the actual vote yesterday on George Santos's expulsion, but they're going to do it today, citing a pileup of legislative businesses. No, what it was a pileup of trash that was going on yesterday that frustrated several people, including you got to go and read Rep. Terry Sewell's Twitter account. She was going in all day long, and I was there for it. I was having snacks, waiting for her next tweet. But the delay, it was just that, a delay, because lawmaker after lawmaker, after George Santos stood up and gave his plea, he also tried to again divert the situation, says we should be voting to expel Jamaal Bowman for pulling the fire alarm. And then he says he hasn't been convicted of anything. he maintains his innocence. So why are they trying to? And then he says he stood up on the House floor and said he has the goods on all of these people. And of course, I mean, they were calling him. This was happening on the House floor live yesterday. They were calling him liar and just all time. A couple of them said, "We don't even know you. We don't even know who you are. Who are you?" And of course, he continued that serial killer, serial terrorist look that he has. Some people are born with a certain look. I mean, he has that look like that you're going to read about him one day for something not famous, but infamous. And this is what we've been doing with George Santos since he's been elected. And looking at him, reading about all these infamous things he's done or alleged to have done. George Santos. Here's the thing with that, and already there are people throwing their hat in the ring for his seat. That seat will likely go to a Democrat, because what's going to happen is they're going to have an election, a special election, after they kick him out, and it's going to be open to all. That sometimes when a seat and I forget off the top of my head the procedure, but when a seat comes available, for instance, like Dianne Feinstein's seat came available, a Democrat, the governor gets to pick who fills that seat. But this has to be a special election, which is open to all parties. And of course, it's still a mystery how George Santos won that in a very much Democratic district. So it's likely that the voters will say that they're not going to be blindsided this time. This is what happens, I guess, sometimes when you say, "Oh, we need something new, something we did, something other than the names we know," and then they get a George Santos. Oh boy, boy, George Santos is going to prison. I was looking at the Department of Justice statements on George Santos yesterday. They want him behind bars, 23 felony counts that he faces. It's like he was trying to match Trump. Trump got 91 counts. I mean, he's almost a third of the way to Trump. Give them some time. I'm sure if they give them some time, resources, they'll come up with another 70 odd charges against Santos. I'm sure it's there. Got to be there. He's a breathing indictment. He's a walking, breathing indictment. George Santos. So in the city of brotherly love, they want you to take the face mask off. The council is banning ski masks in certain public spaces, a move that police say could help them solve more crimes and stop more pedestrians they suspect of being involved in criminal activity. The measure is co-sponsored by 10 members, more than the majority needed to pass the bill. It was authored by Councilmember Anthony Phillips, who represents parts of Northwest and Northeast Philly. The bill allows the city to fine people $250 for wearing ski masks in parks, schools, on public transportation. There are carve-outs for religious expressions and First Amendment activities like protesting. So you can protest in a ski mask. I guarantee you're going to have a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm protesting." Wearing those masks. Years and years ago, you used to wear those. Some people would wear those masks when it was really cold in the Northeast. And it was just that. It didn't raise really many concerns. Then COVID comes along and 2023 comes along as well. And you got to be suspect of anybody wearing a ski mask. Wow. And then First Amendment activities like protesting, and it's, and I don't, religious carve-outs for this. I'd like to know what they were thinking. Because I don't who wears ski masks in their religion. People got to be careful how they word stuff. Council also has raised, the council in Philly raised a handful of measures that they say is targeted toward being responsive to the concerns of people of Philadelphia, especially around crime and public safety. And see, this is the other thing too, is Power 96 brings out this ban. He says it reminds him of people wanting to ban hoodies. Of course, and so the ACLU says that it could violate free expression rights and be misused by police officers stopping and frisking pedestrians. And we know who they stop and frisk because it's legal in Philly. That's one of the policies that they have in Philly, is stop and frisk. And the new mayor, Sherelle Parker, she is all for stop and frisk. But the ACLU says this raises this ski mask ban raises a lot of constitutional concerns. So we'll see what happens with this law in Philadelphia and how it's going to play out there. Not a whole lot of love there, in the city of brotherly love. And speaking of love, imagine if Michael Jackson was still alive today. Certainly many, and I will say myself included, misses his performances. With all the things that we've seen over the past week or so with Diddy and L.A. Reid and all of those guys, and of course the Me Too movement. Now, the Me Too movement would be different than what the crimes that Michael Jackson was charged with, right? Because, I have a contention that might not be popular, but I dare someone to prove me wrong. When it comes to children, folks don't seem, in general, as a whole, I should say, collectively, as a whole, there are many of us who love kids, who really don't want to see kids hurt, who would do a lot, just about anything to protect kids. But lawmakers, and is evident by their pushing for 12-year-olds to be able to get married without consent of their parents and stuff like that. This world as a whole don't care about children. So I don't know that we would have seen with Michael Jackson what we saw with R. Kelly. But I don't know that Michael Jackson still would have been able to escape being canceled and all that stuff, and maybe even wound up in prison if he were alive today and carrying on some of the same acknowledged behaviors that he acknowledged. He said he was going to continue to sleep with little boys. He said everything was pure about it. He loved the kids. He gave them warm milk and cookies. But a trial conference has been set for February 28, 2024 by Judge Mark Young in the case of choreographer Wade Robson, who is suing the companies of the late King of Pop, alleging that they aided and abetted Michael sexually assaulted him for years, beginning when he was just a mere 7-year-old child. The judge will then set a trial date. Wade said that Michael told him, "We could never tell anyone what we are doing. People are ignorant," is what Michael Jackson told Wade Robson, "and they would never understand that we love each other. And this is how we show it. If anyone," this is according to Wade, this is what Michael Jackson said, "if anyone were to ever find out, our lives and careers would be over." And as Greer points out, and she showed me something yesterday in a video on Instagram about Diddy and Cassie. That's how Cassie was able to get anywhere from $30 to $100 million. We don't know the exact figure. Reports say 100 million. Some reports say she asked for 30 or he offered 30, Diddy. But that's how she won, suing the companies. And for those who, and it's the thing. So some may say this is a money grab. Wade Robinson's been fighting this now for 11 years, fighting to get his case heard for 11 years. And this is where I would disagree with Power 96. He says that he's talking about I know he's talking about the MJ case. I for one do not think this is a money grab. I think this is a guy who came to the reckoning once he got married. Wade had a really successful career and still does. Britney Spears hasn't dropped him, even though she's inactive. NSYNC and what's this boy name from NSYNC who I don't like? Justin. Still employed. He's employed. Timberland. They all use Wade. And so many others use Wade. Wade is a gifted choreographer. I think this young man and the other young man and anybody who watched, and I take umbrage, Power 96, anybody who watched Leaving Neverland and came away with the idea that these two young men, particularly that young man, James Safechuck, was looking for money, you're totally misguided. You're totally misguided. Their lives were destroyed. And although, as I mentioned, Wade has had a successful career, his life has never and will never be the same. What he and his family experienced. When he returned to Australia following his 2-week stay at Neverland, the first time, his relationship with Michael would continue, with Michael sending faxes and making frequent telephone calls that lasted for hours on end. I'm gonna tell you the thing that got me with Wade. And Wade, not Safechuck. Safechuck, they tried to get Safechuck to testify for Michael Jackson during his criminal trial. And Safechuck was like, no way. I don't want to touch it. He was threatened, et cetera, and he still stayed away from it. Wade, on the other hand, did decide to testify for Michael Jackson. And folks, Wade was Michael Jackson's first defense witness. And what he said on that stand still makes me cringe to this day, and still makes me say that I understand why he is pursuing this case. I mean, he talked about how, as on the stand, and when Michael's sitting there defending Michael, or at least he believed his words were defending Michael. But he talked about how, as a little boy, Michael would cry when Wade was a little boy, would cry if Wade's mom said, no, he can't spend the night with you. And how he would demand in the middle of the night that they drive from Los Angeles to Neverland, which is a 2.5-hour drive. Because, quote, on the witness stand, go look up the transcripts. On the witness stand, Wade says that, and then Wade's mother backed up his testimony. And she was the second witness and defense witness that Tom Mesereau called. And she said that, quote, his exact words, Michael's sitting there. It was sitting there in the courtroom, obviously, as the defendant. Michael's exact words were, I need Wade tonight. He was 8 years old. I need him tonight. 2:00 in the morning. She says, wait, can you wait till the morning? He says, I need him tonight. Bring him. Come on. And yes, so also during that trial, I learned. Now I knew some things. I'd heard some things. I went. I was a witness in the trial as well. Not only did I cover it, but I was called as a witness in that case as well. That 2005 case. And so a sheriff deputy picked me up from the airport at Santa Barbara Airport to escort me to my hotel. And the lead detective, a guy named Steve Robel, who I grew to really enjoy. He and his wife, they both were detectives. Steve was the guy, if you saw when Michael was arrested in that hangar at the airport and put in handcuffs, that was Steve Robel doing that. And Steve and I, we still talk to this day. I was picked up by a deputy, and they had the court documents and cases, and they knew about the case. He was a sheriff deputy, worked for the prosecutor. And I said to him, because I heard all this stuff, we were talking about Michael. And I said, is it true that, we don't really know what he settled that first case? We heard some people said 5 million, some people said 20, some people said $40 million. Is that true? Do we know? Does Tom Sneddon, the then district attorney, know? He said, oh yeah. He says, this is the problem that one of the many problems we have. Because I remember Michael saying that the money that I gave, he's talking about the 1993 case, the first public case, the money I gave him, he says, I spent in a candy store. He was kind of bragging about it, Michael was. Well, I don't know about you, but the type of that particular case, he wound up paying, including the boy. The boy got the boy in that case got 22.5 million. His parents got what, 2.5 million apiece. So it was like 27 million. And then the lawyers and the investigators and everything totaled another 13 million. So it was like $40 million that he paid off in that one case. So I said to the sheriff, I asked him, I said, so, is it 5? Is it 40? He said, he looked at me and said, Stacy, he said, so what we're going to present, we have all the documents. Michael Jackson has paid more than $200 million to quiet and settle child molestation cases. He said that includes the lawyers too. That includes paying off the lawyers, not only their lawyers, but his lawyers and private investigators, etc. His tab was over $200 million. 200 million. No exaggeration. And you think about that, and that was leading up to 2005. That was, as Greer says, a king's ransom then. This is not Diddy's worth $1 billion or whatever, and he paid, if he gave Cassie 30 million, if he gave 100 million, 100, that's a whole lot of money. But you think about $200 million then for a guy who hadn't been working. Whoa. And he was heavily leveraged when he died. Michael Jackson was. His debt when he died was over $500 million. And that's why his family thought he was murdered, because they said he was worth more dead than alive, and no words could ever have been truer, because his estate has made over $2 billion since he's died. And one of the complaints, and those who are running his estate right now, John McClain and John Branker, they said it back then too, long before he died, that he was spending money he didn't have. You saw that documentary. Oh, I want this, I want that, he couldn't afford it. He had driven himself into being broke. Yeah, he owned these catalogs and stuff. The Beatles catalog was worth so much money, but those were highly leveraged. It's like having a mansion. Even Neverland was highly leveraged. He owed $20 million on Neverland. So it's one thing to have these assets, but if they're leveraged, there's nothing you can do with it. If you own a house for $1 million and you borrowed $2 million against it, there's nothing else you can do with that house. And that's the situation he was in. And that was unfortunate because he set the standard for everybody, not just with his music and the videos, but how to do music business. Paul McCartney still to this day can't stand him because he proved a bit smarter than Paul McCartney, because Paul McCartney wanted to buy the Beatles catalog, Mr. Beatle. He sat down and had a conversation with Michael Jackson about owning catalogs, owning the rights to music. A week later, Paul McCartney says, this guy bought my catalog. And he never recovered from it. Unbelievable. But anyway, so Wade says he eventually realized that he had been systematically abused by Michael Jackson after suffering multiple nervous breakdowns coupled with feelings of extreme stress, anxiety, fear, depression, and insomnia. And something that he and Jimmy Savechuck have been fighting for years. And so at least Wade is going to get his day in court. Hey, let the courts decide. Well, today is World AIDS Day, and the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention put out a call for urgency and collective commitment to ending the HIV pandemic in America. Agency officials said, while there have been recent progress in HIV prevention, the world remains at a crossroads. Dr. Robin Fanfare of the CDC, she says that without sufficient investment in HIV prevention, we risk turning back the clock on the progress we've worked so hard as a nation to achieve. Together with ongoing commitment, we can honor the hundreds of thousands of lives lost to HIV-related illnesses in the United States and millions worldwide by ensuring that everyone benefits equally from 4 decades of groundbreaking scientific advances. The CDC does estimate that 1.2 million people in America have HIV, and 1 in 8 carriers don't even know they have it. Even though new infections have declined overall, the CDC said that tens of thousands of people in America continue to get HIV every year, and progress isn't reaching all groups equally because, in part, to deeply entrenched social determinants of health. The CDC says expanded efforts will be vital to reducing those disparities, and HIV prevention resources have not kept pace with needs. So they're encouraging folks to continue to fight against this dreaded disease, that they can get a handle on it, that they've gotten somewhat of a handle on it, but they're urging people, don't think it's over. The fight is far from over. Well, it is the 68th anniversary of Rosa Parks' historic arrest. And U.S. Rep, I was talking about Terry Sewell earlier. She and CBC Chair Steve Horsford and Joyce Beatty, Representative Joyce Beatty, they held a press conference on Capitol Hill to rally support for H.R. 308, the Rosa Parks Day Act. The proposed legislation wants to designate December 1st as a federal holiday in honor of the late civil rights icon, recognizing the pivotal role her protest played in the movement, which happened back on December 1st, 1955. Of course, Rosa Parks, courageous as you can be. She was arrested in Montgomery for refusing to surrender her bus seat to a white passenger. That act ignited the Montgomery bus boycott, and then it became the catalyst for the broader struggle for civil rights. So they're trying to push this H.R. 308 through. We'll see just how far it might go. We know how these things work in Congress, right? but we will see. We will see. I'm surprised too. Obviously, it was folks like Stevie Wonder, as April Ryan made clear, who fought for King's Day, King's Holiday. Chuck D and Public Enemy and others also joined that fight and eventually was successful. It's interesting that we are now seeing these lawmakers push for Rosa Parks. Like, perhaps that should have been, not that they shouldn't do it, but I'm thinking they should. Why didn't they do it back when they were pushing for King? I guess they say, one thing at a time. But we'll see. We'll see. Naturally, the Black Press will keep you updated if and when this bill proceeds. Well, she's back. She returned. Angel Reese made her return to LSU last night. She had a big smile on her face as she entered the arena and then later the post-game news conference. And she even proclaimed to the reporters, I tell you that she's an icon already. She goes, how happy are y'all to see me? She told the reporters, playing for the first time since she was benched on November 14th. Angel had 19 points and 9 rebounds in LSU's 82-64 win over Virginia Tech. After the game, Angel and Coach Kim Mulkey shared a long hug on the sideline. She last played for the Tigers in their 4th game of the season, which was, of course, a thumping of Kent State. The coach had repeatedly declined to explain why Angel wasn't there, and it led to so much speculation. Angel said it was great to be back on the court. When she entered, before she went on the court, she found a couple of workers there, gave them hugs, and exchanged words of encouragement. She said it was a long 2 weeks to be away from the team. I'm just happy to be back, and this place was amazing tonight. Before the game, Angel was also honored for reaching the 1,000 rebounds career milestone, which she accomplished during the home opener this year on November the 9th. She walked out to center court to applause from the fans at the Pete Maravich Assembly Center. And of course, the coach threw the ball up for her to snatch it out of the air in recognition and celebration of the 1,000 rebounds. It was really a joyous occasion. It was pretty raucous, as you would expect when the superstar returns. And folks, this was such an event that students and other people waiting to get into the game, which had an 8 o'clock tip-off last night, they started lining up as early as 1:45 in the afternoon. By the way, last night's victory, was Kim Mulkey's 700th for her career. She became the fastest to reach that milestone as head coach in men's or women's basketball. Power 96 watched the game last night. He said the refs were hard on Angel Reese last night. You expect it. She expects it. Shaq rebuilt that gym. He gave an impressive $18 million to rebuild that gym. Shaq is, of course, an LSU alum. And he has had Angel Reese's back from the start. Shaq always reaching back. That is the big fella. But it was good to see her on the court. And you read the stories in, mainstream media, and they forever bring up those gestures that she made when they were winning the championship last year. But they never mention, or seldom mention, what the other girl was doing throughout the tournament. Those same gestures. But because Angel did it, is a problem. I mean, come on. She has taken college basketball, women's college basketball, to levels it has dare say they've never seen, and will continue to. At this point, I mean, she's made the most money off her name and likeness, almost $2 million so far since they instituted that rule where the players can now make money. They should be just write the check. They write these coaches these huge checks. They make so much money. That's another argument. I know they've been making that argument forever, whether college basketball, college athletes in general should be paid. And so they threw them the bone of the name and likeness, and Angel's taking full advantage of that. But again, when they start arguing about the difference between men and women, see, let me just say this: I've always been like this with the WNBA and the NBA. That WNBA just cannot pay the players the way the NBA pays the players, not until and unless they start getting the backing, the TV deals and the sponsorship deals that the NBA has. That's just the way it is. But having said that, if Angel was Steve Reese instead of Angel Reese, if she was male instead of female and playing men's basketball, and she could just say, you know what, you could take this college stuff. Let me go sign a $40 million a year contract in the NBA. But she stuck with it, and her earnings, her hustle, her flow is gonna be, and already is, more than just basketball. She's already making money as a model and doing other stuff, spokesperson. A lot of that is this is a young, that $1.7 million is going to be stuff that she's going to be dropping at different charities every other week. That's the type of money she's going to be earning soon enough. But Angel Reese returned, and it is again, it's game day for HBCUs, college basketball, college football. So enjoy the weekend, folks. I'm so glad it's Friday. Aren't you glad it's Friday? We are going to have a good weekend, because tomorrow we're going to go head out to a big event in Washington. The Washington Association of Black Journalists are going to honor the Washington Informer publisher Denise Rolock Barnes. Should be a great evening at night. I hope the food is good. Got to be good, right? I want a good dinner tomorrow night when I go. Denise is going to be honored. Several people are going to be honored. Erica Lowe from the White House will be honored as well. So it's going to be a nice night at the Howard University, right? Isn't that where we're going? Howard University. But it should be a lot of folks there. It's sold out. It's sold out because Denise is getting an award. That's why it's sold out. Folks in DC love Denise. They're like, we're going to see Denise. We got to go support Denise. She's getting the President's Award. That is awesome. The President's Award. Her whole staff should be there, I'm sure. As well as the NMPA will be represented. If nothing else, Greer and I are going to represent NMPA there. We're going to hold it down for Denise. So we had a conversation yesterday. Before we go, I'm gonna share this. I had a conversation yesterday with the White House. Ro is so nice. Ro, she took over for Erica, and you got to be extremely talented to take over for Erica Lowe. And she was so nice, so cool, as you expect. We had a great conversation. Hopefully we come through on some things, including maybe sitting down with the president. She seemed enthusiastic about that. She informed me that the president is now focusing on sitting down with Black media. So, folks, one morning you're going to turn on Let It Be Known, maybe. And on the other side of the screen is going to be the President, Joe Biden himself. She says she's going to work very, very diligently to make that happen. So get your questions ready, David, Power 96, all of you, for the president. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. And I still say, I'll leave you with this today. I looked at Black Press USA today again. I still don't see a Biden-Harris campaign ad, much to my chagrin. Much to my chagrin. Hopefully that changes really soon. We will see. Because before my conversation with Ro, one of our ad executives, guy named Steve Larkin, for some reason, maybe it was a monetary reason. He was an ad reason, I should say. He was on the phone with her. She told me she had talked to him at length. It's kind of scared me, but okay, that's good. It's good. We'll see. We will see. But the president, the vice president, we've had the vice president, right? But they're still welcome here. Very much welcome. They have an open door policy, Let It Be Known, and the Black press as a whole. So thanks for joining us, folks. Have a great weekend. Stay safe and stay well. We'll see you on Monday.